Hello and welcome to Tech Talk at WSU Tech, where we dive into all things WSU Tech and highlight the voices within our college community. I'm your host, Dr. Sheree Utash, president of WSU Tech, and I am joined today by Ildo Martins, and I am so excited to have you on Tech Talks today. So Ildo, talk to us a little bit about, introduce yourself, talk about your role, how do you serve the mission of the college? Let everybody know the great things about
Sure,
you.
happy to. First off, happy to be here, and thanks for being for inviting me to participate. I'm really excited about this and excited about WSU Tech. And so I've been with the college for just going on 2 years now. Time flies when you're having fun.
time flies.
Yeah. And so in my role, so I'm the Director of Learner Services and Industry Engagement. And so Learner Services has I wear a few different hats with the college. Career Services is one of the departments that I supervise. And within Career Services, you have a student engaging and an industry engaging side of things. Then I also have oversight for testing for the college, as well as tutoring in person and online. And then the fun fact is I'm the backup to the library for Noelle if she has to be gone.
So you're our backup librarian.
I am. Yeah, okay. I know. I finally made it.
We're in great hands.
Right. Yeah. She just can't be sick or go on any vacation.
That's right.
Yeah, I get concerned. But that's my role, with the college. And so I have about 11 folks that I get to work with most of the time, every day in some capacity, sometimes virtually or in person. And so it's a lot of fun to do that. We have amazing people. And so I'm just really blessed to have the people that I work with.
You have a great team.
Absolutely.
Doing wonderful work.
They're the A team. Yeah, and I just, most of the time, I try to stay out of their way.
Yeah.
We have an aligned vision, to our mission and thinking about how are we going to change people's lives for the better. When they take the ambition meets opportunity, they took the ambition to enroll, apply, get in, how can we help create that opportunity for them to start their careers and look about advancing economic prosperity, in the community and for individual families as well. And so for me, with a coaching background, I kind of look at it as like the kid that I've been working with has finally made the starting team.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I use that analogy because sports were a big part of my life, personally. And so I think of that quite a bit. We're winning. How can we win the day in career services? And a big part of that is applied learning.
Yes.
Which
is dear to my heart.
Absolutely. Yes.
Huge proponent of it.
And if you're not familiar with applied learning, a lot of people have been doing it for a long, long time. And it's kind of interesting to me now where things have kind of, education can be kind of cyclical, right? Things can kind of come back around. But the one thing that has been in place and is maybe coming more to the forefront is applied learning. And because it works.
It does. It's a key to success.
Absolutely. My dad used to always say you can't be OJT, right? On the job training, kind of that's pretty old school. And I'm a dairy farm kid. And so that was some of the conversations we would have. And, well, you say you can do this, well, show me. Well, in applied learning, in a sense, we do just that. But instead of demanding, okay, you figure it out and you show us, we train folks so that they can go show industry. And we work closely with industry to kind of coalesce with that curriculum and that training that our students are going through to ensure that when they are there for day one in that career, they are ready. And then be thinking about how can they continue to advance their career. To me, that's just really cool. It's amazing to me.
So when we talk about applied learning, let's talk about all the different things that are under that umbrella.
Yes.
Because I think oftentimes people don't understand all the things that roll into applied learning. And then what's the benefit for the student and what's the benefit for the employer?
Absolutely. So I like to call it an ecosystem of applied learning. I have a person that I'm pretty close with that we have quite a few conversations about this ecosystem of applied learning in Shocker Nation,
yes.
Right? And so that ecosystem involves so many different areas of the college that maybe people just don't think about. For example, I mentioned that I have oversight with testing. The vast majority of our students, their academic life at WSU Tech, most of them, it begins and ends with some kind of a test.
Yes.
And many times it's proctored by one of our testing centers. So I like to remind those folks of just how important their role is in being as flexible as they can and getting as many people in there to test, to get them in before classes start, all of those things. But so you have testing as a part of that, right? So you have that assurances of students are ready for the academic rigor that they're going to embark upon. And then also certifications, licensure afterwards. So it's kind of a bookend, right? So testing's there at the beginning and there again at the end. That's a component of that ecosystem of applied learning. Well, then you also have tutoring services. The ambition, meeting opportunity, they're in, we got them in, we're in your classes, okay. It's not going to always be perfect for you, right? There will be challenges along the way. What do we have in place? Well, we've got amazing tutors. And we also have amazing people that are willing to mentor folks as well. And so that's a part of the ecosystem. And then you also have career services. Is another part of that. And so what can career services do as a part of that ecosystem of applied learning? Well, we have dedicated people that their primary responsibility is continuing to add collaborators to our curriculum with industry partnerships, both large, small, and everything in between, and keep bringing more opportunity for our students. And the neat thing about that is when students see the relevance of their curriculum with what they're doing, it brings that learning to life for them. It really does. And I really feel that way regardless of what the curriculum is. In some cases, it's a lot easier to see. So if you show me what applied learning is, learning by doing, if you will, or really taking the skills that you're learning in theory and applying them in real world settings. Where we're at a great benefit and where I think WSU Tech sets itself apart is we can recreate, and we do recreate those real world settings in our labs. When we think about the Haas lab, what we have now, well, most industry partners that we have would love to have that same kind of a setting in their shop, right? But the pivoting that we did in ensuring that we had 5-axis machines, for example, because that's what industry wants. So an important thing of applied learning in that ecosystem for us as a college is listening, what are the needs? Beyond the numbers of how many employees do you need or are you short, and how can we help provide a solution to that problem, but what do you really need them to be able to do on day one? And then you have another aspect of this ecosystem is, I'm a huge proponent, and I know you are too, Sheree, of micro works.
Oh yeah.
And, and students know, just like myself, I don't know what I don't know. And some students or potential employees might show up and, what is our expectation of them? Well, in my opinion, they're there. Right? And let's not assume that they know certain things that just because they're there. Let's ensure that they do, right? And so that's a component of it. How do you getting to work on time? What does on time look like? And greeting people when you walk in the door on a Wednesday morning in the middle of the work week. Saying goodbye to them at the end of the day. What does it look like to interact with your peers and be a part of a team, right? And so micro works, having our students exposed to that structure and what that does for them, it really matches the personal attributes of our students with the skills that they're being taught to create a future employee that someone's lucky enough to have.
So it's not, that's what I love about this, because it's teaching it, but it's also making sure they demonstrate that they know it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's so important because we hear about whatever you want to call it, soft skills, relevant skills,
right?
You name it. They're all the same thing. And at one point in my life, in my career, I was like, why do we have to do that? But then I think about it and I think, if we don't, who will?
Who will?
And that was kind of the beginning of the micro works journey. That's kind of led to that. We talk about applied learning, like applied learning. Sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's not.
Right.
We do a lot of applied learning in our labs, but when we go to industry and we set that student on that path, what does that look like?
So one of the things, I'll talk about what is critical to make that be successful, in my opinion. And part of the criticality of that success is who we connect them with, meaning our student. Who's their supervisor going to be? Because that supervisor has to be willing to be a mentor / teacher to that student as well. And there has to be agreement upon course outcomes and your work-related outcomes as well. There has to be a mesh and a dovetail of those things. And we have clear student success outcomes. That absolutely has to align. And those conversations happen well before a student ever gets placed in a position, right? So if it doesn't make sense to the employer and it doesn't make sense to the student, Well, then it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Right. We can teach them whatever curriculum out of whatever guide we want to. It just won't connect. It won't make sense. So where the beauty of it is when that all works, you potentially then now have a student that as soon as they're done with their technical certificate, associate's degree, whatever their pathway might be, it becomes a life-changing event because we work on making sure that those paid opportunities, that they're viable pay, salaries per hour. We want students to switch from, let's say, a part-time job that they're working at that is not connected with their path of study,
Right.
and make sure it is directly in line with that path of study. And so we might look at, I'll just throw a number, let's say $17 an hour, and they're working part-time, 20 hours a week. And once they go through the process of the on-the-job training, applied learning outside of the college, matched with the training that they're receiving in our labs, in our classroom, connecting with our high-flying instructors. And then they sign a new compensation package once they have gone through our Super Bowl, right?
Yep, that's right.
And what that does for it's life-changing. When they can jump all of a sudden from one day to the next because I put in the work, meaning the student, I've put in the work, all of a sudden I'm making, let's say, $25 an hour.
Yeah. Big high reward.
Right. And the biggest bang, really, and this is one, it really gets me. It's just, I kind of get goosebumps talking about it. In the career services side, we have multiple people that target areas of this ecosystem of applied learning, right? One of those is Elise James, for example, and her work with Shock the System.
Yes.
So we know that people that are just as involved, and if they're living in facility, in work release, they're limited at how much money they can actually make per day. So when you imagine someone that is what they're allowed to make in a month is now what they make in an hour.
Absolutely.
Let's talk life-changing.
Life-changing.
Right? So I love sharing that, for perspective, because then you also have let's say a traditional age high school student coming into college, what their work experience is, how much money, their earning power, what have they really had so far? And then in short time, whether it's a short-term, let's say a technical certificate, short-term aviation, for example, and what they can do, their earning potential, now all of a sudden getting that car or moving out and having the
Buying
means,
that first home is a reality.
Yeah.
For them and their families.
It becomes a lot clearer of a picture to them.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just what's really cool. I use the word cool a lot. I'm a California kid, even though I've been in Kansas longer than I was in California now. But it's just cool. You can throw so many different adjectives to it.
Yeah.
But for me, personally, it's a part of my why.
Yeah.
To see that.
Because it's a bucket filler.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is.
Yeah. It goes beyond filling the cup. It's a bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit. I always say Florence Nightingale had applied learning figured out a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Because, healthcare people have been doing clinicals forever. That's their applied learning. And now we're starting to get this kind of transformation, evolution of that into all the other areas. But let's talk a little bit about your career services and what your team offers to students, provides students, both when they're students with us, and then let's talk about students after they've left us, because I'm working with Sarah Hale right now on a student that was here, went out of Kansas, is now back, and trying to get them reconnected. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So to the last thing you mentioned, that student that comes back to us, there's not a triage of importance, but however, maybe there is. And so looking at, I liken a lot to, educate like an IEP, an individualized education plan. So for each of our students that come to us, whether they were with us and they're coming back or they're just getting started, we need to have an individualized approach. There needs to be a framework to target things, for success in terms of job placement, for example. But it needs to be individualized. And what really has to happen is we have to be willing to ask the next questions when we're talking with individuals to really try to target a best fit for them before we just say, well, there's 4,000 opportunities in nursing right now. Apply for any of them and see what happens, throw the spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Well, we need to be more targeted than that and really try to match personality. Their needs, are you wanting something in a larger organization, smaller organization? How far are you willing to commute? All of those things, there's just multitude of factors, right? But when we're talking about services provided to them, it becomes very personal. And it starts with, sharing personal information, like that resume build, right? And continuing to build on that resume. And talking about how can we make sure that your stack of paper or you're in the right stack of paper, if you will, right, when they first look at it. We know that for most employer hiring, talent acquisition, it's anywhere from 5 to 7 seconds.
Right.
That's the initial look, right? And if it's automated, it might be faster than that. So how can we make sure that we're getting our students that we believe in, that they're getting moved to the right stack for that the next questions asked of them? And so we do that by sitting down one-on-one with them. We do that by aligning with cohorts. We had over 30 different cohort visits last academic year. And Sarah, mentioning Sarah Hale, she leads that. Janine Andrews also participates in that. And every once in a while, I get lucky and I get to be back in front of a group of students again. But unfortunately, I always go over time. But being targeted with those groups of students, what does that look like coaching-wise, and shifting towards a coaching conversation with individuals instead of just do this.
Right.
Coaching conversations, and it's different to a welding cohort than it is a nursing cohort. There are
Very different.
Absolutely. They're not
Very
subtle.
different.
And so being targeted in our approach with that, with student engagement, right? And part of what drives that student engagement, again, and this is the dovetail of career services, right? The two sides of the house, if you will. We have to know what employers are really asking for.
Yes.
We have got to keep our thumb
It's
on
Match.com.
Absolutely.
For employers.
Absolutely.
Students.
Yes. Yeah. And to that end, though, I like to think of the two sides of the house: student engagement and learner and industry engagement. But there are trusses that really build the house, and it's our faculty. So we have to spend quite a bit of time and invest in connecting and building relationships with our own faculty as well. Because quite frankly, here's the thing: if I go into my list of contacts, let's say, and I'll use welding again, let's say I have 20. But if I go to Ryan Zerby, he will crank out a list of 40 different partners that he knows are hiring or have hired in a heartbeat. He'll scratch it down on a piece of paper, right? So how do we work on closing that gap of what Ryan has in his connections and what career services has in those connections? Because we want to free Ryan up to do that voodoo that he does so well, and that's teach. Let us be that part of the ecosystem of applied learning that provides that service so that Ryan doesn't necessarily have to. And so that's part of kind of how that works, if that answers the question a little bit.
It does. Is there anything that you want to say to people about the work that you do that are listening to this podcast today? Is there anything specifically that you think that they don't understand or that you want to leave? Like, what's your 30-second elevator speech to them?
Well, so, relative to career services, for example, is give us some time. Give us time. I'm asking our staff, because we have a new implementation of a new program that we're a platform. So students will go to the career lab. When they go for applied learning, a hands-on approach, they go to a lab in most cases, right? So we want them to go to the career lab to work on their career advancement, right? So 1220 is a new platform that we're going to be that we're implementing right now. It's almost ready to be sent out to students.
Good.
We have employers using it already, which is great for our first career fair. But if I could ask our faculty to commit to a mutual professional agreement, give our students 3 to 5 minutes every 50 days to update their profile and check in with career services relative to their unpaid, paid, applied learning opportunities so that we can collect that data. And we're going to be able to do that through push notifications now, because students don't always check their email. We know that.
We know that.
We know that. And so what do they engage with? Well, they engage in small bits of time, right? And so how can we do that and target them specifically? Because it's about them. It's not about us. And getting that feedback on a more reoccurring basis will help drive our work to build better connections in the community and with our collaborators and future collaborators, and better match our students with them to, in turn, really grow this community that we call home. The air capital of the world. And when we think about the advanced manufacturing that goes on here, there's just so many things. But if I can just get everyone to commit to, we have a professional mutual agreement. Give their students 3 to 5 minutes every 50 days, which aligns with the 8-week courses. Yeah. Right. So being intentional, and so that we can collect that data to, again, make data-informed decisions with how we support students' career. That's my big ask of faculty, and it was a focus of our in-service day presentation that we gave, which was a ton of fun. So.
Well, we hope the faculty will do that. Our students are extremely lucky, very, very fortunate to have you, Ildo, and your team as a support service for them in all these different ways in this ecosystem that you oversee. So thank you for being on WSU Tech Tech Talk at WSU Tech.
I'm happy to be here.
And we appreciate all that you do. And thank you for the work that you do with our faculty, with our students, with our employers to create that match so that they can be successful and have that next step, because it's all about building their careers.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening today to Tech Talk at WSU Tech. Stay tuned for more episodes and continue to learn, explore, and hear about all the wonderful work that's being done at WSU Tech.